My name is Lena Brooks. I'm 34 years old, and on the Friday, my brother's luxury dealership was supposed to be seized. He still found enough pride to insult my husband's hands. "Try not to touch the leather," he said as we entered the showroom. "Grease doesn't come out of Italian stitching." Months earlier, at a family dinner, he had raised a glass to his wife's success, laughed at the mechanic I married, and announced that some people built empires while others changed oil. Now the showroom lights were only half on. Red notices showed through the glass office walls, employees whispered beside empty display platforms, and two bank representatives waited near the reception desk. My parents stood beside my brother as if they had rehearsed their positions. They had already demanded that I sell our repair shop and hand over the proceeds. When I refused, they called me selfish, disloyal, and jealous of his success. That morning, they believed we had finally come to sign. My husband carried a gray file under one arm. My brother mistook his calm for surrender. "Once Lena sells the shop," he said, "we can all move past this unpleasantness." My husband placed the file on the polished hood of a car my brother no longer had the right to sell. "Lena can't sell that property," he said. "I own it." My mother's relief vanished. My brother stared at me, then laughed too loudly. My husband opened the file again and slid a second document across the hood. What was written on that page didn't merely end their rescue plan. It exposed a fact my brother and his wife should have discovered years earlier, and turned their final business day into something none of us would ever forget. Before I show you the document that drained the color from their faces, tell me what time it is, where you are, and where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story of pride, family, and consequences has traveled. To understand why my brother believed our shop belonged on his balance sheet, you have to go back 5 months to a Sunday dinner at my parents' house. My brother's name was Derek, and when we were children, he was the person I trusted most. He taught me to ride a bike and spent one summer helping me rebuild our grandfather's battered pickup. That memory kept me returning long after family dinners became exercises in humiliation. I was waiting for the old Derek to return. He never did. His wife, Vanessa, owned Aurelius Motor Gallery, while Derek ran finance and operations. My husband's name was Marcus Hale. He was a master mechanic with quiet manners and a habit of listening until arrogant people revealed too much. Together, Marcus and I operated Hale and Brooks Auto Repair. I managed the accounts, vendors, payroll, and customers. He supervised diagnostics and the shop floor. It was not glamorous, but it was profitable, and ours. My parents described Marcus as if he were an employee I had impulsively married. They never asked about his master certifications, the diagnostic manuals he studied at night, or the commercial properties he had bought when other people saw only abandoned buildings. They treated my work the same way. To them, I helped at the desk. Although I had doubled revenue without increasing debt and built the processes that kept customers returning. Derek's success was automatically expertise. Ours had to be explained, defended, and translated into terms they respected. That Sunday, Vanessa arrived late and displayed a new gold watch, while Derek announced another record quarter. My parents celebrated. No one asked why Vanessa kept checking a call from Northeast Commercial Bank. Marcus wiped his hands with a paper napkin, and Derek noticed the cracked skin near his nails. "You know, Lena, Vanessa employs people who detail cars. You married the guy who crawls under them." My mother's warning laugh told him to be less obvious, not to stop. Vanessa lifted her watch. "There's dignity in every job, even the lowly ones." Derek leaned back. "My wife owns a luxury dealership. Lena's husband comes home smelling like brake cleaner." My father told Marcus not to take it personally. Marcus replied, "Machines are usually honest about what's broken." The table went still before Derek laughed again. I smiled because I had spent years making my pain convenient for other people. Marcus touched my wrist beneath the table, reminding me I could choose what happened next. Our shop cleared every debt last year, pays 6 people on time, and has a 6-week wait list, I said. I'm proud of it. Derek dismissed it as an unscalable neighborhood garage. The question I hated admitting was this: why did a woman who had built a stable company still feel 12 years old whenever her brother laughed at her? Vanessa's phone buzzed again. She left the room, and through the window I heard her say, "I need until the end of the quarter." When she returned, the gold watch trembled against her glass. After dinner, Derek offered Marcus the name of a detailer, in case the grease had become permanent. In our truck, Marcus asked whether I was ready to stop attending dinners where cruelty was entertainment. I said I was not ready to lose my brother. "Then don't lose him," he said. "Just stop paying for the privilege of being insulted." On the drive home, Claire Morgan, an old friend in commercial insurance, sent me a message. "Is Aurelius having trouble paying its premiums?" Marcus kept his eyes on the road, but his fingers tightened around the wheel. I did not answer Claire immediately. I remembered Vanessa's bank call, Derek's forced laughter, and the watch shaking against her glass. The dinner had been designed to prove that they stood above us, yet everything underneath it felt unstable. For the first time, Derek's mockery sounded less like confidence and more like a man shouting over an alarm. The first crack was an invitation that never arrived. Vanessa's annual champagne preview passed with one carefully cropped family photograph. The room behind her looked half empty. Claire did not hand me secret records or solve anything. She only asked whether I had noticed Aurelius advertising the same vehicles for months. Then I saw the pattern. Recycled photographs, reviews mentioning delayed deposit refunds, repeated bank meetings, and Derek's sudden silence. I began tracking only public facts, not because I wanted them to fail, but because their questions about our equity had become too specific to ignore. State filings showed a new lender lien against dealership equipment. Job listings disappeared, then 2 former employees quietly updated their profiles. A luxury detailer who normally served Aurelius called our shop seeking work. Each fact alone meant little. Together, they described a company buying time. Our business entered its busiest season. I negotiated a fleet contract, hired a second service advisor, and built a reserve covering 6 months of payroll. Stability had cost us years of long days and postponed luxuries. My family did not understand the ownership structure. Marcus had purchased the land and building through Hale Property Works before we married. We later formed a separate operating company that we owned together. I owned half the repair business. Marcus owned the real estate, protected from operating risk and documented in our prenuptial agreement. I had helped design the structure. The only confusion belonged to relatives who never asked. 3 months after dinner, my mother asked how much our property had appreciated. My father asked whether commercial land was easy to liquidate. Derek sent an online valuation and wrote, "Must feel nice sitting on that much unused equity." Their interest was not concern, it was appraisal. Marcus warned me not to answer financial questions I had not invited. As he checked our records, I noticed a second folder labeled North Star Commercial Holdings. Marcus had invested in distressed commercial real estate before our marriage, but the deliberate way he moved that folder stayed with me. Vanessa invited me to coffee and called the crisis a temporary liquidity mismatch. She wanted introductions to wealthy repair customers. I refused to trade in our customers' private lives. "Derek worries you don't understand the pressure of building something significant," she said. The gold watch was gone from her wrist. "We run payroll for 6 families," I replied. 6 salaries are 6 promises. That's why we keep enough money to honor them. Her smile hardened. She said people at our level could afford to be cautious because we had no brand to protect. That sentence clarified the difference between us. She thought appearances were an asset worth sacrificing cash to preserve. I thought trust was a liability we had to honor every day. When she left, I wrote down the conversation and saved it with the growing record of family requests. The next Monday, Derek requested a 60-day bridge loan. I asked for financial statements, inventory financing terms, and personal guarantees. He called the records confidential and ended the call. My father accused me of embarrassing him. I saved every message in a folder marked Family Requests. By Friday, it also held a county appraisal of our shop, with its estimated value circled in red. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday. A certified letter arrived at my parents' home because Derek had once used their address on a personal guarantee. My mother called me crying before she called him. Northeast Commercial Bank had accelerated a secured loan tied to Aurelius's inventory and equipment. If the delinquency was not cured, the bank intended to begin foreclosure against the pledged business assets. My parents had also borrowed against their house to put $320,000 into the dealership. Derek had told them the money would fund expansion. The letter suggested it had covered overdue obligations. My mother begged me not to mention that she had called. 10 minutes later, the family group chat displayed a new message from my father. Emergency meeting. Saturday at 2. Everyone attends. Marcus read it over my shoulder, then went to our office and removed the North Star folder from the locked drawer. Saturday's meeting was staged like a board vote decided before the only dissenters arrived. Derek stood beside a slide titled Family Recovery Plan. The plan required $1.4 million. My parents would surrender their savings, Vanessa would sell 2 vehicles, and Derek would defer compensation. The final line read, Hale and Brooks property sale, estimated net proceeds, $10,000. He had counted our shop before asking whether it was available. No outsider would decide whether I sacrificed our future. Guilt was the only leverage in that room. For 15 seconds, I imagined saying yes. I pictured my mother sleeping without fear, and Derek looking at me as he had before. Status became his only language. Then I pictured our employees learning their livelihoods had been traded for a dealership whose owners hid its books. Derek mistook my hesitation for surrender. Marcus could rent a few bays. Mechanics work anywhere. Vanessa cried that Aurelius was her life. Our shop is also our life, I said. My father declared this was about the family's future. Then show me everything. The spreadsheet did not include relocation costs for our lifts, environmental permits for a new site, lost revenue during closure, or severance if the move failed. I pointed out each omission. Derek called those details manageable. To him, every consequence that landed on someone else was manageable. I opened my notebook and calculated that even a successful relocation could erase years of retained earnings. Their recovery plan was not a plan. It was a transfer of risk from the favored child to the one trained to absorb it. I requested bank statements, tax filings, inventory financing, payroll records, and customer deposit liabilities. Derek struck the table. You fix cars and enter receipts. Stop pretending you can audit a dealership. Marcus shifted, but I stopped him. I built our cash controls, negotiate our credit, and make payroll without borrowing from customer deposits. If your numbers are sound, open them. Vanessa's tears stopped. The problem was worse than the bank's letter. My mother took my hands and apologized for the jokes and for underestimating us. Every apology pointed toward the same transaction. Sell it. Just this once. Choose us. I had managed my parents' bills after surgery, covered Derek's rent once, and watched Marcus repair their cars at cost. None of it had purchased respect. If saving family meant destroying the only life that had never humiliated me, was that love? Or obedience dressed up as love? No. Derek said Marcus would be more practical, and my father claimed a real man would not let pride cost his wife her family. Marcus waited. The answer is no, but Lena is the person you should hear. She answered you. Vanessa revealed that on Friday the bank could take the vehicles and their 5-year showroom lease would expire. They had missed the extension deadline. The landlord would consider a new term only after receiving proof that Aurelius could meet its obligations. Derek called him a cowardly speculator who knew nothing about automobiles. That detail mattered. Even if I surrendered our property, they could not guarantee a showroom. Derek had presented our sale as a complete rescue while concealing the lease deadline. I asked whether the bank knew. He refused to answer. My decision had already been no. Now I understood that yes would not even save them. It would only place our assets inside the same collapse. "What's the landlord's company?" I asked. "North Star Commercial Holdings." The name from our locked drawer landed with perfect clarity. Marcus said, "You should have read every name on your lease before you mocked the people in this room." When Derek blocked the door, I began recording. "Move, or this becomes a police matter." My father ordered him aside. At home, Marcus opened the folder. 8 years earlier, before Aurelius existed, he and two investors had bought an abandoned furniture showroom at a bank auction. He later bought out both partners. North Star renovated the shell and leased it through a property manager. Derek and Vanessa had negotiated through attorneys and received renewal reminders at 180, 90, and 30 days. They ignored them, withheld required statements, and fell behind on common area charges. Marcus had not created their deadline, he refused to erase it. When Aurelius signed, its tenant entity was controlled by Vanessa's family, and Derek joined operations later. Once Marcus recognized them, the lease was already at arm's length. He pushed the ownership records toward me and asked what I wanted. "Nothing vindictive," I said. "We enforce every contract exactly as written." That night, Derek texted, "Friday, 10 a.m. dealership. Bring Marcus and the deed. Don't make Mom beg again." I replied, "We will be there." Friday returned me to the scene where this story began. Empty platforms broke up the marble floor, and a notice said electronic refunds were delayed. Derek greeted us with the remark about grease on Italian leather. My parents waited near Vanessa and her attorney, while two bank representatives reviewed vehicle numbers. A couple near reception argued about a $20,000 reservation deposit. Every audience Derek never wanted was already present. I recognized one of the employees as a technician who had once attended a training seminar with Marcus. He avoided our eyes. Nobody had told the staff whether they would be paid after Friday. Vanessa had continued accepting deposits until the previous afternoon. The contrast sharpened my anger. Derek had called our 6 salaries insignificant, yet we had protected payroll before paying ourselves. Aurelius had protected its image before protecting anyone. Derek laid a sale proposal on a car hood. A developer could close on our property within 21 days, curing Aurelius's immediate default. My father said Marcus could work for the dealership afterward, and Vanessa offered to let him supervise used car reconditioning. I asked for the financial records. Derek called them irrelevant. Then there is no deal. Derek accused me of enjoying their humiliation. I told him part of me still loved the brother who had rebuilt our grandfather's truck with me. "If that man is still in you, show me where the money went." Shame surfaced, then vanished. Marcus placed the gray file on the car. "Lena cannot sell that property. I own it." The deed and operating agreement showed I co-owned the repair business, not the real estate, and that the structure predated our marriage. I had known and helped protect the company from property risk. There was no deceived wife, and no signature Derek could pressure from me. Derek tried a different attack. He said a husband who kept property separate from his wife could not be trusted. I opened our prenuptial schedule to my own initials and showed him the operating company shares that protected my interest. "Marcus disclosed everything before our wedding," I said. "You counted an asset you never researched, then called our transparency a betrayal." My mother lowered her eyes. For once, the structure they mocked proved stronger than the assumptions they had made about it. My father asked Marcus to sell it instead. He moved so quickly from moral outrage to a new target that even my mother looked embarrassed. Marcus refused. Derek slapped the document with the back of his hand and called him a selfish wrench-turner hiding behind paperwork. "You own one garage," he said. "Stop acting like a businessman." Marcus removed the second document. "I also own this building," he said, setting Northstar Commercial Holdings deed and beneficial ownership certification in front of Derek. "Your lease ends today." The dealership lost sound. Vanessa's attorney read the certification twice. Derek gave the false laugh I remembered from childhood. "Northstar is an investment group." "It was," Marcus said. "I bought out the other members 3 years ago." The attorney asked whether non-renewal was retaliation. Marcus produced delivery confirmations, arrears statements, and requests for financial disclosures. Aurelius had acknowledged the first reminder, then failed to provide statements, cure common area defaults, or prove adequate insurance. The attorney stopped speaking. Derek said the property manager had promised a deal. Marcus pointed to the wording. A proposal would be reviewed, not guaranteed. Hearing the lease had ended, the bank representative called his secured assets team. Its collateral was now inside a building the borrower had no right to occupy. One employee quietly recorded, "My father asked me to make Marcus grant 30 more days. The bank is taking inventory and customers are waiting for refunds. A month does not repair that." My mother said Derek and Vanessa did not deserve public ruin. Then they should stop performing and tell the truth. I asked Vanessa how much they owed in customer deposits. Her lawyer stopped her, but the sales manager answered, "More than 400,000. He produced a folder showing canceled order deposits classified as current revenue. Derek fired him. "There may not be a company left to fire me from," he replied. "It was not our trap. It was what happened when the first frightened employee realized the owners no longer controlled the room." The technician I recognized spoke next. "Employee health insurance premiums had been deducted from paychecks," he said, but the carrier had warned that coverage could lapse. Vanessa called him confused. He showed the warning on his phone. The bank representative instructed both employees to copy, not remove, every relevant record. My parents stared at Derek. Until that moment, they had believed his failure was a sophisticated market accident. Now they were hearing how ordinary people had financed his performance without knowing it. The bank representative requested the customer liability ledger. Vanessa's attorney asked everyone to stop talking. Derek turned on Marcus and accused him of engineering the collapse by hiding behind Northstar. Marcus's answer was almost gentle. "I did not choose your inventory loans, spend your reserves, ignore 6 months of lease notices, or take customer money. I maintained a building and expected the tenant to honor a contract." Derek stepped close enough that I could see a pulse jumping in his neck. "You wanted this," he said to me. I told him what I wanted was the respect that should never have depended on our net worth. "But this ending belongs to your decisions, not my anger." At noon, Aurelius's attorney signed a key turnover protocol allowing the bank 48 hours to catalog and remove secured vehicles. Northstar granted that limited access to protect the cars and the employees handling them. It did not extend Aurelius's tenancy. Vanessa removed a framed magazine cover from her office wall. Derek watched workers place lender control stickers on windshields he had polished for the weekend. My parents stood beside him, unable to praise him out of consequences. Before we left, he asked whether I was really willing to let my own brother lose everything. I picked up the repair shop sale proposal and placed it back in his hands. "I'm not taking anything from you," I said. "I'm refusing to let you take everything from us." The employee's video reached local automotive circles before we reached home. It captured Derek's insult, the deposit disclosure, and the bank ordering the ledger preserved. Customers compared delayed refund emails online. Vanessa blamed a malicious landlord until her attorney removed the statement. Dated lease notices quickly destroyed that defense. Marcus and I gave no interview. We documented everything and let records carry the story. The bank transferred 27 financed vehicles to other dealers. A second lender froze Aurelius's credit after finding borrowing reports that included cars already promised to customers. Both European manufacturers terminated the franchise agreements for inadequate working capital, inaccurate reporting, and loss of an approved facility. Aurelius became a corporate shell with debt and a name no supplier trusted. Employees received part of their final wages through a state wage claim process. Others waited behind secured creditors. Marcus hired the technician I recognized after a normal interview, not as charity, and two other shops absorbed several staff members. Derek later claimed we had poached his people. In reality, he had stopped giving them a workplace before we offered one of them a job. Records showed that new reservation money had covered older refunds, payroll gaps, personal travel billed as marketing, and lease arrears. The state regulator suspended Aurelius's dealer license, and the Attorney General's Consumer Unit opened an investigation. I did not know whether criminal charges would follow. The immediate result was enough: frozen accounts, supervised assets, and conversion of their attempted reorganization into Chapter 7 liquidation when rescue financing proved non-existent. The audit exposed Derek's control. He had approved inflated projections, delayed tax payments, and moved expenses between months to satisfy loan covenants. Friends stopped calling. The dealer association removed him from a finance committee, and former colleagues described pressure to misstate refund dates. His reputation vanished because his signatures appeared on every choice he blamed on the market. Vanessa's gold watch had been purchased on the dealership card the week employee commissions were delayed. She sold it with her jewelry and cars, but the proceeds went to the bankruptcy estate. She kept claiming North Star had destroyed a healthy company until the trustee reported that Aurelius had been insolvent months before the lease ended. Even her closest social circle stopped repeating her story. The local luxury magazine removed Vanessa from an upcoming Women in Leadership profile. A charity board where she had promised a large dealership-sponsored donation asked her to resign after the pledge proved unpaid. Those losses hurt her more visibly than the auction. She had built her identity around being seen beside expensive things. Now every organization she had used as a backdrop was reviewing what she had actually contributed. My parents' guarantee covered one equipment note, enough to consume most of their savings. They sold their Lake Club membership and house, then rented a smaller townhouse. What hurt my father most was facing friends who remembered how loudly he had praised Derek's brilliance. He had ranked Derek at the top and me at the bottom. The collapse taught him that a status was not a retirement plan. At first, they told relatives that I had chosen property over blood. Then one aunt asked why Derek's rescue required closing a profitable shop and eliminating 6 jobs. My parents had no answer that survived repetition. Invitations thinned, not because the family enjoyed scandal, but because my father kept demanding that everyone endorse his version. Public sympathy disappeared when entitlement became part of the story. My mother alternated between apology and blame. I told her we would communicate only in writing until she could apologize without a demand. When my father accused Marcus of buying the building to entrap Derek, I sent the 2018 auction record and lease notices. Any interference with our shop, I warned, would go through counsel. They did not test it. Derek came to the shop 3 weeks later without a suit, watch, or apology. Vanessa was leaving, their condo was listed, and our parents blamed him. He insisted everything could have been avoided if Marcus had extended the lease, or I had sold the shop. Even stripped of status, he still searched for someone else to carry the fault. You had customer money, lender money, 6 months of notices, and a trusted business. You never had the right to our future. He called his dinner insult a joke. No, you were telling us what you believed. I love the brother you used to be, but I will not finance the man you chose to become. He left the old carburetor we had rebuilt as teenagers. I placed it in my office, not as a promise that everything could be repaired, but as proof that I had not imagined the good years. For several nights, that box unsettled me more than the bankruptcy news. It was the first sign that Derek remembered who we had been, yet he still could not say, "I was wrong." I allowed myself to grieve without converting grief into access. Losing a brother to his choices was painful. Surrendering my boundaries would not bring the old one back. Claire apologized for watching the disrespect too long without asking me to rescue anyone. I accepted because accountability sounded different from desperation. After the trustee removed Aurelius's assets, Marcus asked what should replace it. I proposed a Hale and Brooks training center with paid apprenticeships, diagnostic classes, and customer education. The building was his, but this chapter would be ours. Let's build something whose value is visible in the people it trains, I said. 9 months after Aurelius closed, the marble showroom no longer displayed cars no one could afford to touch. 6 hydraulic training stations occupied the center floor. Former dealership technicians taught diagnostic courses beside instructors from a community college. The sales office where Vanessa once framed magazine covers became a classroom, and the glass conference room where Derek hid bad numbers became the planning room for our employee profit-sharing program. We kept the exterior understated. The new sign read, Hale and Brooks Automotive Training Center, with smaller words beneath it: skill, honesty, independence. The expansion did not make Marcus or me suddenly worthy. That was the lesson I had taken too long to learn. We had been worthy when our shop had 2 bays, when I answered phones from a folding desk, and when Marcus came home with grease beneath his nails. Ownership documents did not transform him from a lowly mechanic into a brilliant investor. They merely forced my family to confront how shallow their measurements had been. The real victory was not watching a luxury dealership close. It was refusing to destroy a healthy business, 6 livelihoods, and our marriage's security to preserve an illusion built by people who mocked us. My parents eventually wrote a joint apology. It did not mention the house, the money, or what Marcus could still do for them. My father admitted he had turned his children into competitors because Derek's visible success made him feel important. My mother admitted that she had called cruelty joking whenever challenging Derek threatened the peace. I agreed to meet them for coffee once a month. Reconciliation, I told them, would be measured by consistent behavior, not one emotional letter. We were not restored to the family we had been. I no longer wanted that family. We were testing whether something more honest could be built from what remained. Vanessa moved to another state after the bankruptcy case and regulatory settlement. Derek took a back-office job with a fleet company where he had no authority over customer funds. They separated. I heard those facts from my parents and asked for no details. Part of me still missed my brother, especially when I looked at the carburetor on my office shelf. Missing him did not mean reopening the door to blame. Love and access were not the same gift. On the training center's opening day, Marcus wore a clean work shirt and the same scarred boots Derek had mocked. He stood at the edge of the crowd until I pulled him forward. I told our apprentices that honest work leaves marks: grease, calluses, failed attempts, revised plans. Dishonest pride leaves marks too, but usually on other people's lives. Then I handed Marcus a shop towel printed with our new logo. He laughed and used it to wipe his hands before shaking mine. That night, after the last guest left, we stood beneath the showroom lights Derek once believed proved his superiority. I felt no triumph over his empty office. I felt relief that I had finally stopped confusing sacrifice with love. If your own family demanded that you erase the life you built to protect the image of someone who had always looked down on you, where would you draw the line? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes the boundary that disappoints a family is the same boundary that saves a life from being lived for their approval.
Thank you for supporting our channel and watching this story. Everything here is fictional and it is only for entertainment and dramatic reflection. We hope reminds you that when people take your presence for granted, stepping away can teach you just as much as teaches them. You may discover that your life feels lighter when you stop carrying people who never carry you.